Probably haven't heard of this film before, but today I'm going to be talking about a drama film called The Outrun, so let's talk about it. Rona, fresh out of rehab, returns to the Orkney Islands, a place both wild and beautiful, right off the Scottish coast. After more than a decade of living life on the edge in London, where she both found and lost love, Rona, now 30, attempts to come to terms with her troubled past. The film stars Saoirse Ronan, Paapa Essiedu, Nabil Elouahabi, and Lyle, and was directed by Nora, Fingscheidt, and I've never seen any of her previous works. The Outrun. Now, this was a movie that I saw the trailer for only one time. It really had no advertisement. Saoirse Ronan, I was really hooked to check this out. I've seen her in more films that I actually thought I did. She's kind of in a lot of like artsy and under the radar films that don't usually make a whole lot of money. Most notably, I know her from a film called Hannah, which was made several years ago when I was actually graduating from high school. So that's really how I really remember her. And then also she was in The Lovely Bones, which was a popular book during that time period. And when it actually came out in theaters, I do actually remember that. So I was very interested to see what she would actually do in this role. Now, she plays a character named Rona, who is an alcoholic, and she's recovering from being an alcoholic. And the cinematography here is done so well. I love that it was shot in the Orkney Islands, which is in Scotland. If you're not familiar with those islands, I actually didn't know where it actually was. And it was really cool that they actually shot this film on those islands, as there is some breathtaking scenery in this film. And just looking at shots where you're looking over a cliff into the water, you have a lot of nature in here. You have some seals where they show them swimming and such. And the character Rona, she actually is a narrator in this film, narrating about her life. And one of the positives that I took from this film, and something that I didn't really think about until I actually sat down and obviously watched this film, is she's actually a really good narrator. She narrates in here about alcoholism and how it really affects the brain, and she really gives us topics about that alcoholism and how it really affects people. And then she also talks about nature in here, where she talks about seals, which is very interesting. And I thought, she could be a very good narrator for like a National Geographic type of documentary with animals or something with the earth. I think she would do a really good job at that. She has a very relaxing voice, and she gives a really good performance here. I think that she really does help, elevate this movie as a whole. As far as her performance, I think she does a really good job of playing someone that is under the influence of being an alcoholic. And you see many scenes in here, because you see a lot of scenes where you see her with her parents, because there's a lot of non-linear plot here, obviously. But in this nonlinear plot, there's a lot of different scenery in which you see her really struggling with her father, or you see a scene with her mother and she's struggling. She also has a boyfriend in which she struggles with him as well. And a lot of times she's really struggling pretty much throughout this movie, trying to really find her place. But also there are times where she has a lot of anxiety. She smokes a lot in this movie as well. And there's a part in here where she has so much anxiety that as an alcoholic, she's hiding the fact that she's still drinking, and she actually turns on a faucet and she starts drinking. And I really can relate to that in a way, because I have a history in my family where there is a lot of alcoholics. And I actually had my grandfather, when he was still alive, he would actually hide bottles under the bed, and he would actually shut the door, and he would actually drink as well. So I really relate to that kind of scenery. And that's kind of what drew me into this film as well, because I really wanted to see what they would actually do with alcoholism. They do have a lot of shots in here and conversations in which you have Saoirse Ronan's character actually at AA meetings and talking to other people about their problems and just what they're really doing and going through the emotions of being an alcoholic and the anxiety that they actually induce from being an alcoholic. Piggybacking off the fact that obviously this is a movie about someone who is an alcoholic, we do see a compare and contrast with how her life is. So you have a scene obviously where she gets drunk and she has a boyfriend, and she ends up beating him and just absolutely going ballistic and keep drinking and drinking and drinking, and then the next day completely forgets that she actually did that. that she actually beat up her boyfriend, and then she apologizes and she's like, yeah, I would never do that again. And that's a very powerful, raw, and relatable scene, especially for people that have been in a bad relationship or someone that is an alcoholic. They may have experienced that. And this film, it definitely dives into little scenes like that, or when she's actually lashing out to her dad and just lashing out to her parents in general. There are scenes like that in this film, but then there are some peaceful scenes in here where you see her actually in this rural lifestyle where she's on the Orkney Islands, and this is where she really seems like she's very most comfortable and very relaxed. You see her on a farm, and she's actually helping this baby sheep actually have her calf, which is a little bit of a graphic scene, so if you don't like that, you actually see the sheep get pulled out of the sheep's body. Going from showing nature side of like a sheep and then showing seals and her narrating about these different animals, we also see her listening to music a lot, and her music choice is techno music, which I thought was a very odd choice. I guess she's the age for this kind of music, but it just seems kind of off-putting for this film, and that's where I really dive into my negatives of this film. This is a very slow film, but it definitely feels like you're going in a merry-go-round. It feels like you're going from scene to scene, in which obviously it's non-linear, but the way that it's structured, it's kind of all over the place, and it feels the only time that you can really understand where you're at in the story is when she actually has different hair color, because in each scene, in each time period, she has different hair color in those scenes. But also they're trying to say a lot in this film. They're bringing a lot of topics: alcoholism, actually relapsing from that, recovering from that, mental illness, trauma, the Orkney Islands, nature. There's just so much kind of packed in this movie that it doesn't really pick a lane actually where it wants to go. And that's really what I had a problem with this film. Is there are some really interesting ideas here. It's acted well, it's shot well, though I do have a little bit of nitpickiness in which there are a few scenes where the camera is shaking a little bit and a little bit out of focus, but it wasn't too detrimental to the film because there's only a couple scenes where that actually happens. But for the most part, I was on board to actually learn more about this character, but the problem is the character herself isn't all that interesting. You're asked to go on a 2-hour journey with this girl who obviously has an alcohol problem. Yes, you learn certain things about her, but she's just really not that interesting overall. And that's kind of my biggest flaw with this movie, is if it's a little bit more structured, it picks its lane on where it actually wants to go. I think I could have been a little bit more on board with this movie. So as far as the score for this movie, I would give it a 2.5 out of 5. I thought it was okay. I definitely thought I was on the right track. I think there's a lot of elements here in which there's some really good ideas here, and there's really good cinematography, but I just don't think the structure overall really was for me. So that's why I would give it a 2.5 out of 5. What do you guys think about the Outrun? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you just think it was kind of meh? If you haven't checked it out yet, are you going to check it out when it comes to VOD or streaming? And let me know down in the comments, what is your favorite Saoirse Ronan film? Thank you guys for watching as always, and I will see you guys next time.